So normally in MLB The Show, I'm more so of a ranked seasons player. In years past, I've been someone who just liked to play ranked more. I was a big World Series guy. I love making that push. But ever since MLB 21 has come out, I've just become a big fan of BR. And I've actually gotten pretty solid at too. I've gone 12-0 once. I was at 11-0 today, and I absolutely befuddled a Mike Trout run, which is eternal pain. But also in general, I just in general have been doing a lot better in BR. I'm not the best player, but I think I have learned a lot in terms of building your team, playing in game, and just some general tips to help people actually go deep in a 12-win run. I made a video the other day, if you want to check that out, about drafting a team and give you tips to draft the best team, but that's only half of it. You could draft as good of a BR team as you want, but if you struggle in game, you don't have the right hitting and pitching approach, you're probably going to struggle to get deep runs and even get close to 12 now. So we're going to talk about our gameplay, our pitching, our hitting, just in general, the main tips I have learned to help me win games in BR, and hopefully these will help improve your BR runs so you get more 12-0 runs. Let's get into it. What is going on, YouTube? I appreciate you all watching this video. In case you did not know me already, my name is Scan, and I do upload daily MLB The Show tips and videos and things like that to help you all get better at the game. So if you want some hitting, pitching tips, things like that, but also completing things in the game like monthly programs and stuff like that, there is a video on the channel for you, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, take a look around, see if there are any tips that'll help you get better at the game, whether you're an Xbox player hopping on for the first time, or in general someone who has been playing for a while and is just confused and just wants to get better at the game even. I've got tips on the channel that'll help you all with that. Also, I do stream on Twitch every day, and we have been playing a lot of BR on stream, so if you want to kind of get into my mind, asking questions, or just in general, watch a deep BR run. We've been doing BR on stream a lot, so if you want to hang out with us, come check out the Twitch channel down below. It's a fun time. I could just ramble on about, you know, plugging things and all that, but obviously, I'm not going to keep you guys any longer. Let's just talk about our BR tips and help you guys get better in game. So I'm going to show you guys some of the footage from the game that I streamed so you guys can see kind of what it looks like in game for me of a BR run. There are a few things to note with a BR game that kind of separates it from, say, ranked seasons. First of all, people aren't having God Squad teams. They aren't using all diamond players. Also, kind of with our drafts, we kind of want to choose the right players, you know. You see a lot of guys who have glitchy releases, some solid pitch mixes that you may not expect, and attributes aren't everything. So that means that even if someone has low power, there's a great chance you could still hit very well with that person and take your yard, even without big power numbers. Really, BR is about putting up good swings, being patient, and with pitching, it's really about just trying to induce weak contact. I'm gonna clarify on all those things, but let's just first talk about the hitting approach. Hitting is obviously a big deal in BR. A couple things to note: you have 3 innings, so you have 9 outs to work with. You don't have 9 innings of a ranked game to really adjust to your opponent's approach and amount. You have a very short time to really learn your opponent, how they're attacking you, and making adjustments to the plate. So really, we can't really play it like a ranked seasons game. You can't really give outs. You gotta really work pitch counts, be patient at the plate, and just be smart. So what I suggest to people when they're trying to get better at BR, just come into every at bat and just reduce the zone. So what I mean by that is choose one pitch, choose one spot in the zone, and just wait for a pitch in that spot. For example, whenever I use Jesse Winker, who's one of my favorite BR cards, for me, I just wait for someone to throw me an inside pitch. I keep the PCI on the right side of the plate. I wait for that pitch inside and just try to capitalize on any fastball, breaking ball, or anything gets thrown inside, because Winker has a very good pull swing and will crush anything that he pulls. And I don't want to really have to hit the ball opposite field, so I will only really expand my zone to the entire zone. When I'm in a 2-strike count, I kind of have to play defensively. A key with BR is just capitalizing on the mistakes that you get. You're going to be playing for the 3 innings, but obviously since you are facing people who are constantly shifting their bullpen, changing pitchers when they're even low on energy by a bit, you got to really capitalize on the mistake pitches. You're not going to really be able to get confidence super down without being patient. So I do recommend also just really taking a lot of pitches. I mean, I'm a little bit of an aggressive hitter. If I see a pitch that I really like to swing at it, even if it's been like a 1 or 2 pitch inning. But Obviously, I know a lot of people will struggle because they are swinging at strikes just to swing at them. So like what I mean is, first pitch of the at bat, someone will say throw a slider down the way. They were sitting fastball and they weren't ready, and they just still swung and rolled it over. I play a lot of people who swing very freely at the plate in BR. A kind of good comparison is playing BR kind of like your showdowns. Obviously, showdown, you have a limited amount of outs to work with, and you got to really be patient at the plate to work down energy and confidence. And especially in BR, you kind of have that same thing. Yes, the energy and confidence won't be as much of an effect if people are smart with managing their bullpens. But at the plate, if you work the count, wait for that right pitch to swing at instead of flailing at everything, you will find more success at the plate. I find for me, when I'm pitching to someone who's a free swinger, I do a lot better in those games because I don't have to throw pitches in the zone or even very hittable pitches just to get them to induce out. So you really, if you can just work pitch counts, work on your plate discipline. I do have other hitting tips if you want to check those out if you are really struggling, but in general, you do want to just work on your discipline and be patient. Obviously, that's a little redundant, but in BR, it is especially a big deal, even if you aren't the best hitter, to maybe even take until you get your first strike or anything like that. Like I said, reduce your zone and wait for one pitch and sit on that one pitch based on the opponent pitcher. Next, number 2. You really want to be smart with base running. And what I mean by this is that you can't take risks on the base paths. I've lost a few games already where I try to send someone one more base further than necessary and I get hosed and just kills any sort of rally. So really, if you hit a ball to the gap and you're unsure about sending your runner to second, third, home, wherever, I would lean towards the side of leaving them at that base. Be patient. You have minimal outs to work with. You give outs on the base paths, it just is going to stop a lot of momentum that you have. So really, for example, say you hit a ball to the gap and you're unsure if you want to send that runner to third that's rounding third home. I would recommend, if it's a close play, if you think it's going to be close, just play it safe and keep them back, and only send them when you're like very sure that they'll be able to score. Even though you have less outs to work with, remember, if you keep a rally going and you don't give someone a free out, you still have opportunities to score him even without scoring him in one extra base hit, for example. It's smarter to preserve outs and be smart in the base paths. Also, don't spam steal. With certain guys, you can catch them off guard by stealing bases, but I wouldn't try to constantly steal bases. A lot of people in BR can read it. A lot of people can really tell when someone's going to have high speed. They're going to try to be annoying on the base paths. Last thing you want to do is give free outs and only steal if you really know your opponent isn't going to slide step or pitch out. But even still, I wouldn't bank in the randomness of stealing, especially with how I suggest drafting BR teams. Are trying to draft for power. Try to hit homers, because honestly, there are a lot of good power hitting silver players, gold players, things like that. And again, if we have minimal outs, you want to try to bank on hitting the power swing. The final thing that I would recommend with your hitting in BR is just in general, don't be afraid to pinch hit, don't be afraid to platoon, and just in general, don't be afraid and just try to don't be afraid to make a move to give you a better matchup, especially later in the game. So a lot of people, for example, may draft a not so great hitting catcher or shortstop, which will happen sometimes, whatever the position is. It's good to have those bench options that who can also hit and not be afraid to put that better hitter in for an at-bat and then defensive sub him or something afterwards. Ideally, we want to focus on the hitting, make that our focus in BR. Usually, if you are a good enough hitter and you find a way to score enough runs, you'll be able to out-hit your opponents even when all hell breaks loose. Obviously, in the MLB The Show world, it doesn't always happen. Obviously, you get those games where you give up a lot of hits, you get some tough luck, which will happen. But if you focus on becoming a good hitter, you'll be able to out-hit all the randomness and bad luck that comes with BR. So just in general, if you're going to focus on one aspect of your game for BR, it's got to be your hitting. You got to make sure you are a good enough hitter if you want to make a deep run to BR, because yes, you can pitch all you want, but obviously you only have a certain amount of outs. You got to make sure you're able to out-hit even a good opponent, because sometimes you'll play good players and you're going to have to score a lot of runs to win, even in a 3-inning game. Now, let's talk about our pitching and things in general. I kind of mentioned this in the draft video, but first of all, I like to draft relievers, and I like to start relievers. I noticed that reliever energy does come back quicker than starting pitchers, so ideally you want to draft silver, gold relievers and then start them at the start of your game instead of starters, just because their energy comes back, and in general, a lot of times relievers have better pitches than starters. There are a few starters that are good, like your Dustin Mays, Corey Klubers, but even still, I recommend leaning towards relievers to start games, and the only time you should start a starting pitcher is if you really don't have another option, or if you do get one of those glitchy guys. So for me, I like to draft I like to draft 3 lefties and 5 righties whenever possible, and dedicate a couple righty starters. But obviously, in this run that I had today, I had 4 lefties, 4 righties, so I would kind of alternate between starting lefties and righties in the game. Really doesn't matter, but just in general, make sure you're starting relievers. Also, keep an eye out on your pitcher's energy and stamina. Make sure that you are keeping up with it, because the second their energy gets into the yellow, they're starting to get at risk of sucking. You could have low energy, and this may be a weird concept, but low energy could mean that your opponent has an even bigger PCI and get more fluky hits. So really focus on your energy and confidence. The second someone starts to really struggle, don't be afraid to have someone warming up in the pen and putting them in right away. You gotta remember, yes, games are only 3 innings. Their opponent has only 9 outs to give, but also you only have 9 outs to make. You don't need one pitcher to get all 3 outs. Use like 3 to 4 pitchers. It's always good to have a lefty or a righty warming up in your pen, just so you have the options for the matchup. You'll find something that works for you. And just in general, don't be afraid to change your pitching and anything like that. I've learned that pulling a pitcher sooner rather than later usually helps me, instead of keeping them in super long and letting them just flood you with runs. A final thing with pitching, I'll really go into some nitty-gritty here. Pitching for contact. So what I mean by this is, in BR, we're on All-Star difficulty. We're on one of the easier difficulties in the game, All-Star. The PCIs are very big, things like that. And obviously these are silver, gold, bronze players. A lot of them aren't great players. But just in general, with how BR plays, I like to pitch to induce weak contact. I'm not trying to constantly throw breaking balls out of the zone or just execute a strikeout. I'm trying to throw pitches in certain part of the zones to induce weak contact. So what I mean by this, when I'm using a guy like Jake Deepian, for example, I'll try to throw a lot of sinkers inside, some sliders in on the hands of righties, and try to throw the ball either inside to break a bat or something like that, or even throw like a breaking ball away from an opposite field. Pitch speeds are very slow, so people have a tougher time slowing down to a slider, curveball, whatever, away. So it's good to throw those away from hitters and try to get them to roll the ball over, or throw high-speed pitches or certain breaking balls inside off the plate or right on the edge of the zone to get them to break bats, or hopefully, swing at a terrible pitch and miss. But with BR, you'll notice there'll be a lot of foul balls, a lot of pitches that were a mile off the plate that people still foul off anyway. So for me, I like to pitch for weak contact and try to induce weak contact at the plate, and not trying to strike out everyone, just because pitch speed is so slow, and I find that not that many people strike out anyway. Final thing is planning your matchups and reading your opponents. So for me, when I'm pitching, I have to adapt to what my opponent is doing at the plate. That's kind of my main way to kind of succeed on a mound. So for example, I'd like to gauge my opponent's timing on pitches, maybe throw some fastballs inside, see if they're early or late on them, throw some breaking balls away from them, see if they're early or if they're just timing them up well. In general, it's good to kind of use a batter or two to gauge your opponent and see what they're doing at the plate. Make adjustments to how your opponent is hitting. So for example, if I start someone in some of my games, I started Taylor Rogers, who's got a sinker and a couple breaking balls. I'd throw some of those sliders and sweeping curves out of zone, see how much that they want to swing at them, see if they're really slowing down to the breaking ball, or I'd throw the sinker inside, see if he's timing up well. And I made a decision right away on how I'm going to approach them. Sometimes you will play people who really struggle with it, and they're just going to automatically miss or induce bad contact on those pitches, so you could stay with that approach. However, you'll sometimes play people who are very good. They're all over the fastball. They're slowing down to the breaking stuff. And at this point, it's really about playing matchups. Obviously, matchups are usually a big deal. But in BR, there are a lot of players who are very platoony, who are very good versus both sides. So I find that if you are playing a good hitter who is doing everything at the plate, the best thing you could do to counter it is giving good matchups, putting the best pitcher for that at-bat scenario. Putting the best pitcher that you could for that scenario on the mound to kind of counter any sort of adjustments your opponent makes. So for example, there are a couple things I'd like to focus on. If someone is really timing up a slower fastball well, maybe I'll put in a reliever who throws high 90s, try to get them later on the ball since they have to adjust to the faster pitch. Maybe if I'm playing someone who's actually timing up the high velocity as well, then shortly after I'll put in someone with slow velocity like a Darren O'Day, throws a lot of breaking balls, and not give him any fastballs to hit and just try to throw breaking balls and making those adjustments. And even if you are playing a good hitter, at that point you just got to play matchups. You got to really make sure that you're looking at the batters that are due up and choose the right reliever to put in at any time. If you keep even a pitcher for very long against a good hitter, they will read and adjust to that good pitcher. No matter how well you pitch very quickly, adjust themselves at the plate very well. So what you have to do is keep your opponent on their feet and let them not adjust as much as possible. Change pitchers and just in general try to mix up the repertoire from the same first pitcher whenever possible. And my final tip, this may be a very weird, the best thing you could do to get better at BR is play more BR. BR is completely different from any mode in the game. It's maybe close to events, but the thing that BR does differently is that every game is short, you're using a weird mix of players, and honestly all chaos can ensue in BR. So the best way you can get better at BR is practicing, which is kind of dumb in a sense. You know, obviously the more you play a mode, the better you're gonna get at it, very likely. But BR should be treated separately. You know, a lot of people usually have to dedicate themselves to one mode to kind of get good at, and usually it's just ranked seasons or just BR. It's very difficult to say play ranked, make a World Series push, play in Hall of Fame and Legend, and then right after play BR, and now you're slowing down onto All-Star. Best thing you could do to get better BR is stay consistent. Even if you have some bad runs, just keep playing, keep practicing, and keep on playing the mode itself, because it has its own setting. It's its own mode, its own entity. And the best thing you could do is take your reps, and you know, even if you get deep in runs, you maybe choke some games, things like that, there's always a value in keep on playing BR and making that your main mode. Now I've learned, especially the more I play BR, the more I get better at it, because I don't have to adjust from different difficulties using different players, and I'm used to the setting of BR. But that is gonna be it. Those are my main tips for BR. Hopefully I gave you some information that'll help you. I do want to point out that the main thing that I notice people struggling with in BR is patience. A lot of people have the ability to, on All-Star especially, to time up swings well and move the PCI well onto the ball. But obviously, if you're swinging at everything, if you're not relaxed to plate, waiting, reducing your zone, if there's anything that you take from this video, you have to do that. Be patient, work counts, wait for a certain type of pitch in the zone, whether it's a fastball or some breaking ball. Just be patient, man. And also, if you do want some more hitting and pitching tips, I do have other tips on the channel to help you all get better at that. And those were kind of supplementary to BR here in my general tips. All those things are good things to include in this, but obviously I can't go in depth on them because I'd be talking for like 35 minutes here, which we obviously can't do. I hope you guys learned something new. Hopefully these tips help you all get better at BR. I very much hope they do. These are the main things I try to focus on when I'm playing, things that I have learned from the mode, and just in general things that I see people make common mistakes with, especially when I'm playing and I'm playing an opponent that seems like an easy win. A lot of these things these people failed to do. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you learned something new. I believe in you. Just like our World Series video, a lot of people can go 12 now. It can seem difficult. Trust me on that. It's not the easiest task to do. But if you put up a very good run in one sitting, a lot of people can get good enough to go 12 now. You kind of got to believe in yourself. You got to be confident, relax at the plate, and try to stay composed. Because obviously chaos will ensue in BR. Things won't go your way because of bad players, bad fielders, bad pitchers. And it's easy to get frustrated. But I've learned the more composed and relaxed you stay, the better people will be at BR. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you all in the next video. Deuces. Also, by the way, to the guy who said in my comment section that I should stop saying it, you know what? I'm going to keep on saying it. I'm going to give a second deuces just for you. Deuces.